Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Files Obscura. Now, in light of recent events, we decided that we are going to change things up a bit for this episode. It's kind of an impromptu decision, very much last minute. We are recording this, on Monday, the day before this episode goes out. And we had a few ideas, and because of personal things going on, like me getting a second job, scheduling has been a little more difficult. So it just felt right that we do an update video or update episode, I should say, on our coronavirus episode that we did about 5 weeks ago. And we're going to look at how things have changed since the episode came out. As if you're well aware, you already know what's all been going on, with the riots, the protests, everything with Trump going on lately too. And if you've been living under a rock, well, we're gonna be here to educate you. So today I'm joined by Vlad and I'm joined by CC as always. And if I seem off or I seem tired, I highly apologize. But we've got a lot to cover today. So to start, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah.
I'm doing decently okay.
Yeah.
Stuck in a 2 week lockdown is kind of draining me mentally because I can't do much other than sit in my room or talk to people who I've been seeing solidly for the past few weeks.
Yeah, I can understand that completely.
Yeah.
With America opening back up for business for the most part. I kept saying it for a long time. This is a bad move. We're going to see a massive rise, in coronavirus cases, and then so much more happened that complicated the mess. And now we're seeing the consequences of everything that's been going on, And we're going to talk a bit more whenever we get into some videos. We got a lot of videos pulled up that we're going to play for you guys today that you can go check out on YouTube. Just a bunch of news articles and stuff like that from private journalists giving points of views and, remarking about certain things that are going on in our history. So of course, as always, the biggest thing to talk about right now, is the protests, the riots, and it's important to start where, the kind of the first match, I guess, would I'm losing my train of thought, so sorry. We're going to talk about George Floyd, for a sec. And how more so what his death meant, in the past couple of weeks. And then we're going to talk about everything that's been going on since then before we go back to the coronavirus. Because there's a lot of important information to get out right now. And I've been seeing a lot of misinformation and fake news on Facebook, Twitter, and just everywhere else. And it's just so many people that it blows my mind that we have so much ignorance in, the information age, when so much information is available and easy to access, and we choose to be ignorant because we listen to who screams the loudest.
Yeah. And something you have to keep in mind is on the internet, a lot of these websites are they're trying to get views, they're trying to get clicks. That's like the main reason they have all these ads and stuff. So you got to make it flashy, and sometimes that means lying to the public, which I think we can talk about a bit because there was a recent news that just came out about Fox News and doctoring images really badly, may I add.
That one I did not know about, if I'm going to be honest.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, because I had to take a few days for myself and be like, you know what, I can't right now. I just got a second job, which is why I'm so tired. I still got bills to pay. But yeah, there's just been so much going on, and I try to be, stay up to date and be more informed than I used to be in the past. And just, oh God, especially now with what's going on, statues, Confederate statues are being pulled down, discrimination rights or discrimination against the rights of, the LGBTQ community, is going on today that I just found out about. About work discrimination. There's still the protest issues. There's the autonomous zones that are happening. Did you hear about that?
The autonomous zones?
Yeah, the Capitol
I've
Hill.
not heard about that.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. So it's been so much going on. A lot of things that have been brewing up in America, in my opinion, for a very long time. It's not just my opinion. It's facts, no matter how you look at it, and just so much to digest. So today, to kind of get in the heart of what I wanted this podcast to be, we're just going to be discussing the events that have unfolded the past month and really just look into what's been going on. Just so that, like, for the people who don't understand, I'm with you. There's a lot of stuff I don't understand. And it takes you researching this stuff. It takes you looking into it and willingly clicking on it. Yeah, it's going to take you another 2 minutes to really get into it, but it's important to know. It's important to stay
It was also
informed.
supposed to be Prideful recently as well, actually.
Yeah, it's Pride Month. And we have to sit here and be angry, It's ridiculous. Because originally I wanted to do an episode before June was over about Stonewall. Because, that's something I know is important in the history of the gay community, but it's something I did not know much about. And I figured that would be good to get a little history lesson during Pride Month. And unfortunately, that episode, I can tell you right now, it's not going to come out before June's over. I already know that, but I do want to do it justice and talk about it at some point.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah,
I'd like to be there for that one, obviously.
Yeah, and because I want to have open discussions about, tough topics and stuff that people deem taboo still for some reason. I just saw a Facebook post before we were recording that kind of made me laugh a little bit. It said the world's only getting browner and gayer, so you might as well hop on the bus,
Hell yeah.
So, yeah, I don't see the point, But like I said, let's start from the beginning. And I'm not going to get into the debate about, George Floyd, whether he was a good guy, we should see him as a martyr, he was a criminal who only stole drugs all the time. I'm not going to get into that. The life of this man, I did not know. And I think right now it's unfair for me to give my opinion on him with everything going on, because obviously I'm going to be a bit biased, because I'm on the side that, no man should have died the way he did. 8 minutes and 46 seconds. He was on the ground being suffocated slowly.
I feel like the most important thing about all this is, and by the way, it is tragic that it happened. But I think something we have to keep in mind is this is really about a system that,
Yes, absolutely.
It's broken, fundamentally broken.
It's a systematic.
Extremely, and both, most first world countries actually is extremely broken.
It's built on a system that is not designed to last.
Yep.
And it just I can't fathom that it takes us this long with so much tragedy to get to this point. But like we discussed in our second episode about the Tylenol murders, it takes tragedy for action to happen. Unfortunately, we, for some reason, as a species, won't take preemptive measures
until it's too late.
Until it's too late. Well, that's when it's no longer preemptive measures, though. And it's just. It's another point that, I was kind of thinking about a bit before we decided to do this episode. May 25th, this year, 2020, that was the date that George Floyd died, where his video of his death, went public. The picture of George Calvin, the police officer that you could see with his knee on George Floyd's neck. That's when all this started kicking off. Shortly after, that's when the protests started happening. That's when the riots and looting started happening. And I personally, I don't support looting. I don't support rioting. I support the appropriate response to actions taken by cops whenever they incite incidents and incite violence. I accept it then as a appropriate response. But just to loot and just to riot just for the sake of everything that's going on to take advantage, I do not support.
Which I do think is kind of happening a lot, where a lot of people, maybe they're going to these protests for maybe for the wrong cause.
Exactly. And they're looking for an opportunity to destroy shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you see like a group of like 5 white kids like breaking a window, it's like, yeah, I don't think it's part of the protest.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Jake Paul got arrested for it, didn't he, actually? One of the Paul brothers.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's true.
Jake Paul was recorded on Instagram. He was throwing like Molotov cocktails into windows and stuff. I think partially because he's a destructive person, he did because he could, and that just doesn't give a good name to the movement at all.
Oh, yeah.
No, and well, I mean, he's a narcissist,
He's an asshole.
Big time trash human, like.
Mm-hmm.
But we also see it where I saw some posts online about some statues were being vandalized.
Vandalized, removed, defaced, all kinds of stuff.
But specifically, I've seen posts about statues that had nothing to do with like the Confederacy or white national, like people that were not recorded racist. I think it was some English,
Like who?
like an English king, like who, by the way, nothing to do with this whole thing. Like,
That's not true, because I know what you're talking about, and a lot of those are happening because they pretty much, funded the whole slave trade to begin with. It all points back to them.
Oh, really?
That's also the reason why so many people on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean are talking about, taking down or defacing Christopher Columbus statues, because he was a big proponent of that as well.
Oh yeah. By the way, Christopher Columbus was a piece of shit. He doesn't deserve any statues or anything.
One of my favorite analogies about Christopher Columbus was that he went to a YouTube video with over 500,000 views and then commented first, and we all just went with it.
I mean, yeah, basically.
But I mean,
yeah, pretty much.
That's exactly what happened.
And I think what pisses me off is like, as a kid, and hopefully they don't do this anymore. But as a kid, they're like, oh, Christopher Columbus, big historical figure, big dude,
right?
Like this dude, like founded America or some shit. Like, and all of it lies, all of it lies. But point being, like, I feel like he's been idolized for such a long time. So seeing his statues being taken down, I'm just like, I mean, yeah, who is this guy? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and we'll get more into the statues here in just a minute. But like I said, I've got a series of videos pulled up for 3 or 4 different points of different events that have been going on, so that way we can all get get into it. And for all the videos and all the audio that we play today, full rights go to the respective people who own the rights to these clips. Fox, CNN, SN or NBC, whoever we play it from, they own their stuff. But I feel it's important for us to get an idea of what's going on. So I'm going to start going through some of these videos about what's going on, not just here in America, but some of what's been going on around the world, protests in Asia and and in Europe. This first video is from Now This, which is a channel I personally really enjoy watching, and the video is called "Police Attack Reporters at Black Lives Matters Protest." I wish I could talk.
Get there eventually.
If it will play. There we go. Reporters are being attacked by police nationwide. It says.
With rubber bullets, my cameraman has been hit. We've also seen tear gas being used. Here we go.
So yeah, okay. So if you didn't hear that, the lady reporting on this particular video is dated June 1st, so just over a week ago. She was talking about how her cameraman was hit with rubber bullets, and the video, the cops were just now starting to throw out tear gas. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen it going around, which I doubt you haven't, because I've been seeing it literally everywhere, about how most of the tactics that the police are using are completely against the Geneva Convention and are committing war crimes. They're committing war crimes
against your own people. It's horrific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is.
Here's the thing. Why do we even let police officers have tear gas if we won't even let soldiers use tear gas? Why is that even an option? Why is that allowed?
Yeah, it really does. And here's the thing, though. This whole thing is citizens standing up, against something that they believe is wrong. And you see it. Massive crowds of peaceful protesters, going down the street.
And another thing you'll see everywhere, sorry, but I just want to bring this point up, is seeing all the posts that pictures I've seen about the protest, happening nationwide, of just people holding signs and then getting maced in the face, or being just, tackled when they are just, solo by themselves, holding up a sign. They're not being aggressive. They're not attacking the cops. They're not, throwing shit necessarily all the time. I know there are people who do, and I don't personally support it, but it's just it's unfair. It's not right, and it's a blatant abuse of power.
It feels like they're trigger happy almost. They're trigger happy and they want to be in a fight and they're looking for ways to instigate it.
They'll use any excuse they can to justify their actions. And it sucks.
It's horrible.
There are good cops, but I also believe in the idea that a drop of poison can poison a well. Just because there are good cops, the whole system's broken as soon as you allow that one bad cop.
Yeah, and if you let it happen, or you let it keep happening. And by the way, I totally believe that the concept of a police force makes sense. It's you need somebody you can call to come and take care of things.
Right.
But here's the thing: it's way too quick to become a police officer. It takes longer to become a hairstylist.
Just over 21 weeks.
Exactly.
You need more vetting. You need more testing, sensitivity training, anything.
Yeah, and I recently saw another post on Facebook about San Jose. There was the dude who was hired to teach the police academy about de-escalation tactics was shot in his groin at one of these protests when the police failed to de-escalate the situation. How do you shoot the guy
Oh my
who teaches you
God.
how to escalate situations? It's also said they don't know if he's ever going to have kids, like ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
It's really fucked up.
Poor guy.
Yeah. And yeah, no, I mean, it's completely insane that it gets like this. I feel like a police officer, somebody who's supposed to stand for the law, somebody who's supposed to be a protector of sorts, should be held to the same standards that you would a heart surgeon or a judge.
Well, I think, given the fact of their unique job position, they should actually be held to a higher standard. Punishment should be higher because they are in such a
obviously
law. But instead, we are more lax on them. That is why so many bad cops can get away scot-free.
Yeah, there's no
one bad apple spoils the bunch.
Exactly. People just take them in. It's like, oh, you want to be a cop? Sure, come on. Like it's not. We don't like. Here's the thing. I feel like the military has stricter standards, doesn't it? Like, yeah. Why does a police officer who does a lot of the same things that somebody in the Navy would do? Why is it so easy for them to just get away with this shit?
I don't know.
Yeah,
and obviously in the military you get like psychological training. You get tested to see if you are mentally fit for the job.
And a lot of former cops too, or former military, do wind up becoming cops at some point. And I have seen many reports about specific individuals who were able to handle these situations better. And I've heard the rare occasional story about them actually getting reprimanded because they would rather de-escalate the situation than just shoot because it's quicker. It's ridiculous. There's a story. There's gunmen's who were killing cops the past couple of months, who were former police officers and former veterans, who I'm thinking back to who it was. It was Trevor Noah who was commenting about it. And not Trevor Noah. I don't know why I said him. It was Dave Chappelle. I think I was watching them both at the same time, going back and forth and stuff. And they were talking about these incidences where these former veterans were out there killing cops because they felt like they were being attacked, like they were facing an enemy, an enemy of the state. So they did what they were trained to do. And then, like I said, as much as I don't believe that violence is a solution to pretty much almost any problem, I get it. I completely get that mindset. We train them to be killers, and then we're giving them an enemy, and then we blame them for it. It just doesn't sit right with me.
I mean, obviously, from where I am, my country doesn't really have guns. I mean, we do for farmers and the like, but that's to get rid of pests. Yeah. So obviously, I can happily say that I would say get rid of the guns because they're, at least from the police anyway, because those. And again, that doesn't really stop the killings. But again, it just feels like they're given too many weapons too easily in America.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, over here, it's really crazy. There is a bit of a gun obsession, especially in the South. I don't know why people think it's necessary to own a machine gun that can kill like 5 people in 2 seconds, quicker than that actually. Things that are fully automatic. I mean, I get rifles. I get that kind of stuff. To a certain extent, I even get pistols. But there's some stuff where I'm like, that's a little extreme. You're owning a gun just to own a gun at this point. And I don't know. Like it's a whole different culture. I know. And I honestly I don't fully understand it. And you see it all the time. People feel like owning a gun is some kind of like right to kill, which it isn't.
And
Even then, though, I guess I can make the argument with knives as well, because I have people who own machetes that I know. So it's at what point would we then cut that?
Well, and you know, before we round off, you know, our short little, you know, gun discussion before we go back to some of the protests that have been going on, I'd like to say from my own personal point of view, you know, let me be open first. My first job was working at a gun range, so I'm just going to let that be open. You know, I was 16. I got a job at a gun range. My job was to collect the bullet shell casings, and we would then refill it with the gunpowder and resell the ammunition, you know, save some money. And at the end of each, you know, night, we were given, you know, because I was working with my brother, we were given the ability to, you know, practice shooting guns. And that's where I first learned to shoot. Now, the amount of safety, you know, precautions and training that they gave us before they even let us shoot the gun first, you know, it was intense. It was extensive. It was really well thought out, you know. And so when I come to this side of the gun debate issue, I know for a fact that of anybody of sane mind, and I'm not going to get into the laws and you know whether we should or shouldn't with that, because I feel like that's very nuanced and circumstantial. You know, overall, gun culture with the right person, of sound mind and body, you know, it's a very safe, you know, hobby because of the amount of procedures and you know stuff that you have to follow. You know, the amount of training that they make you do to understand your weapon, to understand why, you know, it fires and how to make sure it doesn't ever happen by accident, how to take care of your, you know, your rifles, your pistols, your shotguns. So when you hear the stories about, you know, accidental deaths or school shootings or stuff like that, the thing that people want to point their fingers to first is the gun. And I get the reasoning. My issue is the fact that it's, for me, from where I stand, it's a very clear. Ooh, excuse me. I don't know what's going on. It's a very clear mental illness issue for me. It is a lack of understanding and a lack of care over deep-seated issues that should have been resolved a long time ago had we had the appropriate framework for people to get help. You know, it's been long understood in America, we don't have the health care that we need. We don't have, you know, easy access to the things we need. Women here suffer from, you know, not being able to afford or get the right, you know, feminine products, you know, for their periods and stuff. Birth control is a big issue, you know, for women. It's taking so long for men's birth control to become a thing now, as it's very slowly crawling through the FDA. You know, when it comes to, you know, discrimination, you know, when people have to pay, you know, Black Americans on average, you know, can pay almost up to double what a white American would pay for, you know, stuff like housing, clothes, car loans, you know, anything like that. You know, and you know, a lot of these societal issues can lead to unresolved issues in an individual that build up over time. You know, and because they don't have a place to go to resolve these things, they're stuck. They're lost, and they're just going to blow up eventually, and that's not good. We should be able to take care of our citizens.
Okay, but I think you also have to keep in mind that we, like, if you look at the statistics, we have more school shootings than other.
I'm aware.
At the same time, it's like, why would you make this weapon so easily available? This weapon, by the way, they can kill so many people so quickly, so easily available to literally anyone. I don't. That doesn't. I don't.
Here's the thing. I want to stop you right there. It's not easily available to everyone, not to the degree that you think, and not to the degree that the argument pushes. I can say from firsthand experience, there still is the process. The problem isn't the process. The problem is the people who subside those processes. That's the issue, because there are gun shops that will, you know, do workarounds and stuff like that to push it. It's not an issue with the system. It's an issue with the people. It's an issue with the culture.
Yeah.
So when people
obviously, I know nothing about that. From my point of view, it just looks like you can stupidly easily get guns.
And it is a uniquely American problem more so than anything else. And I do understand that, because when people say ease of access with this, that, and the other, it's because of people who are irresponsible with the weapons. And there's also, the ease of ability to get black market guns in America. I watched more than enough crime documentaries about people who hand make guns and import them to the US, that are almost unrecognizable. The differences are almost unrecognizable from name brand products like Smith and Wesson. And the ease and how cheap it is to get these kind of weapons is ridiculous. So to say, push more legislation doesn't stop anything at all with these black market guns being pushed through. That's the problem. And there's also the gun show argument, which is its own thing, but it's a lot of issues that is definitely worth its own topic. But like I said, we are here to discuss what's been going on lately, not get into a gun debate argument.
That's fair. That's fair. But
yeah,
I have a lot of opinions on that.
Yeah, and we are entitled to our opinions. That's what's ideally is supposed to make America great. But as we are seeing, with the discrimination still today, obviously opinions aren't respected, and that to me is the true tragedy. That we cannot live peacefully, disagreeing on small nuanced things. That we have to find things to be angry about and literally protest and riot just to be just so we get to a point where we can say, hey, we're starting to be equal again.
I'm honestly really glad that that it did start happening.
Yes.
Whether you agree with the rioting and looting or not, the fact that we've escalated to this point means something. Means that people are upset. That when I see crowds, massive crowds of people, like huge, massive crowds of people just walking down the street for one purpose, that's amazing. By the way, the crowds walking down New York, walking down DC, I'm just going to go ahead and say they're way bigger than the crowds that showed up for Trump's whole thing. So it just shows you that I feel like the majority of people aren't happy with this. The majority of people are against this.
Yeah.
And that is fantastic. There's a lot of people who are very upset about it. A lot of people who wish it never happened in the beginning. But we got to this point because of how bad things are. I see it all the time. I see posts on Facebook. It's like, all lives matter. Why is this an issue? Like, all that stuff. And I'm like, well, obviously you're not paying attention. And I also find it hilarious. These all lives matter people will say all lives matter
until we get to situations where they matter.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to play.
It feels like absolute bullshit as well that we've had to wait for so long, and it's got to this point where we've had to physically almost fight back to be heard.
Oh yeah, it is awful that it got to this point, but I mean, at the same time, I'm glad someone's being heard.
Well, as put so elegantly, like by many of the people I went and did some Houston protests with, signs of aggression, are signs of oppression. People react violently when they are mistreated. That is how it happens.
Yeah.
We've been, many different demographics in America have been suppressed in many different ways, especially the Black community. We're just not taking it anymore. Things are changing, things are evolving in society. And it's becoming a global thing. There are protests being held in Europe and Asia, like I said. I'm about to play a clip, from the South China Morning Post, a very pro-China news source. But they have a video, showing, a lot of the protests that are being held across Asia right now. So I'm going to go ahead and play that, and we are going to listen in and describe what we are seeing. So in Tokyo, dozens marched in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement in the U.S., which, by the way, is interesting because Japan is uniquely, pretty homogenized in the community. There's not a lot of foreigners that you'll see there. So to see them standing up, it's kind of surprising to me.
Racial discrimination everywhere out there. But I think the main reason why we came together is enough was enough. And unless we stand up to do something about it, it's going to be never ending.
when you see these people marching down the streets, you see what looks like cops in yellow vests walking alongside to make sure traffic can still go through, but the people are protected. In Taiwan, hundreds are gathered for a Black Lives Matter movement. Protests started in the U.S. and spread worldwide, including all throughout Asia. And it's interesting to see, you know, so many people from places that aren't us, you know, that isn't America, you know, because there are other countries with other demographics that are, what's the word I'm looking for? Discriminated against, you know, and you know, in a way they can see themselves in the movement that's here, which is, I believe, is the biggest reason this is growing, you know. Like I said, we're seeing clips from Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, even New Zealand, you know, is thousands joined in, you know, in a protest in Auckland, you know, and just seeing the pictures and videos of all these people coming out to the streets reminds me of what I experienced whenever I went out, you know, in downtown Houston. You know, yeah, and that's another thing too, is the South Koreans have really been taken off. Did you hear about them taking over the All Lives Matter hashtag and really messing with it, posting nonsense?
Oh yeah, no, I saw.
Really?
I saw,
What?
Yeah.
So a lot of K-pop fans, they took it upon themselves to get like some. So there's tags like White Lives Matter and what was the other one? Those
All Lives Matter, and White Lives Matter, and they just
spam it. They spam that tag with a bunch of fan cams,
a lot of nonsense. Just I saw one post that was nothing but numbers.
Exactly, it's fantastic because it mutes those hashtags. It mutes like what they're trying to say, which is wonderful. It's actually wonderful. That's such a creative way to actually make a difference.
Oh yeah.
A lot of shitty voices out there. A lot of people.
It's like, yes, I agree, all lives do matter, but at the moment, that's not what we're trying to say. We're trying to say, hey, at the moment, Black lives are being oppressed and pushed down. Their lives matter too.
Yeah.
We can agree that all of them matter, but at the moment, that's not what we're arguing.
Well, and like the thing is like the argument is always people say all lives matter, but how can all lives matter if you're not supporting all lives? You know, it's that simple.
Exactly.
The same people who say all lives matter are extremely quiet when like trans people are losing their rights.
You know, yeah, trans people are losing their rights. Blacks are being discriminated and killed in the streets. You know, all the deportees are currently being gassed. You know, it was one report that I saw.
If it's true that all lives matter, then they would be a little more vocal about all lives.
Exactly.
And they're just using it just to like shh, be quiet, shh, don't say.
They're just trying to shush you.
Yeah, exactly.
And that, we can't let that keep going on. It's just not good for the movement. It's not good for change. It's not good for us. You know, we are the generation that is really pushing, you know, for a renaissance, if you would, you know, and how we approach, you know, social justice and how we approach the future and how we approach, you know, our rights. This is the tipping point, and we've been experiencing it since the kickoff of the internet. Now that we all have, you know, a way to take advantage of, you know, a larger way to connect to people, this is where it really matters. You know, the voice of the public, you know, is what matters. Before then, we watched television or listened to the radio, and we'd listen to whoever was speaking then, a very, very niche part of the community who was able to be outspoken like that. But now, anybody with a camera, phone, or a mic, you know, can get on the internet and say what they want. You know, and really talk about the things that they want to talk about.
Yeah.
It's both beneficial and detrimental, honestly.
Yes, it can be.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where we come to issues with like fake news and stuff. But I have another video pulled up about the Prime Minister. Where does it say? I think it's in England. It says, I don't know. It's on Sky News. The title is called Prime Minister on Black Lives Matter Protests. We don't hear enough of the positive. I'm going to play some of this.
Who want to go and protest, who will inevitably break social distancing rules to do so, and also the small number of people who are content on doing damage and disruption.
Well, what I would say to everybody thinking about this issue...
that's Boris Johnson. That's my Prime Minister.
All right. People feel outraged, certainly, about what happened in Minnesota and the death of George Floyd. Everybody understands people's legitimate right to protest against discrimination, against racism, in our society. And I think this is a country that has made huge progress in tackling racism. And, you know, we should look sometimes at the positive stuff. You know, we've got more young black and minority ethnic kids going to university than ever before, more black kids doing the toughest subjects at school, doing better than ever before in school. We don't hear enough of this positive stuff. And what makes me sad about what's happening today is that you've got a situation in which the statue of Winston Churchill, who is a national hero, has had to be boarded up for fear of violent attack. And that, to me, is both absurd and wrong. You should not have a situation in which people who are protesting on one basis are violently attacking the police or public property. And I'm afraid what's happened with these demonstrations is that a tiny minority, or a growing minority, unfortunately, have hijacked them, and they are using them as a pretext to attack the police, to cause violence, and to cause damage to public property. So unfortunately, my message to everybody is that for all sorts of reasons, they should not go to these demonstrations. And whatever our feelings about the cause, we should not support a demonstration that is in all probability, looking at what's happened before, going to end in deliberate and calculated violence. So I'm afraid that is my message. But we will continue to make progress as a society in tackling racism, because that is the substance of the issue.
And a very good question on that do commit destruction, that do commit violence. Lots of people watched what happened last week and were appalled by what they saw and didn't feel like the authorities came down hard enough on those people. So what are you going to do if people do commit destruction and damage this weekend? Are you going to do anything extra, anything more police-wise or with the courts to make sure those people are justice?
Well, I saw the police this morning, and they've already made hundreds of arrests in the last few days, and they will make many more, because believe me, they can see the culprits. The culprits may think that they've got away with it, but they haven't, because overwhelmingly they are being recorded with body-worn camera, and we will bring them to justice, and they will face the full force of the law. It is not acceptable in this country to attack a police officer. It is not acceptable to set out in a calculated way to do damage to public property, let alone to a statue of Winston Churchill.
So, you know, with that little snippet that we just heard, you know, obviously I do agree we don't talk enough about, you know, the positives going on. Obviously, I also agree, you know, we shouldn't be the aggressors and just go out and attack police officers. But I also believe that, you know, you do need to make a stand. You do need to make a show as a public, you know, as a community, you know, and that there are certain things where, you know, in my personal opinion, laws don't cover, you know, when it comes to true change, there are certain times where laws will stand in the way. And that is 100% my opinion, you know, before anybody says anything. But I also believe that those are very, very circumstantial situations. This just so
I'm personally going to butt in and say that, at least from where I'm at, hearing what he said, my university that I'm doing, which is obviously, you know, I do game development animation. That's my thing. I've personally seen very few people that are not my race at my university. So I think he may be putting things on a little bit thick in that, but that might just be where I'm at.
And again, like I said, this is, you know, this is more of an American problem, but it is a problem that can extend overall to other countries. But with America the way that it is, I believe specifically, you know, this is a situation where action does need to be taken, you know, because a lot of the arguments I hear is like, for whatever niche or nuanced incident that we'll see on the news or read on Facebook, you know, it's always they have a right to free speech, or you knew it was going to be, you know, violent. Why go? You know, you're just asking to get hurt, you know, and so much, you know, things. It's like, but you don't realize that doing those things is allowing, you know, more problems to persist. They're allowing problems to continue.
Exactly.
If you don't actively do something in defiance to show that you will not accept it, you will not stand for it, how will people believe you? How will people have the courage to follow?
And a lot of people saying that stuff have probably never seen or heard or maybe personally experienced what it's like to be discriminated against. They've probably never like they because here's the thing. When you're sitting in your house, right, watching the news, seeing what's on TV, right, and maybe you've never seen it firsthand. All your experiences with police officers have been perfectly fine. It's like, what? They're all people. They're great. But all these other people have different experiences. Your personal, singular experience with something is not everyone else's. People who, by the way, are sexually assaulted or racially like discriminated, they can see things from a different angle than you can. Somebody's like, it's like that. I'm sure you've seen that meme online where the Hawks are discussing about like, oh, I don't get it. Why is it such a big deal? I don't get what Mr. Mouse is going on about.
Yeah,
it's true. Like when you're when you're on the outside, you don't see the perspective of people.
Yeah.
Like I would be upset. By the way, if a police officer kills someone close to me, I would want to burn down the entire planet.
Yeah, and it reminds me of a picture that I saw that went viral of a mom, I think, that lives somewhere in like Massachusetts or something. I don't know. These specifics are not important, but the sign that she held said, if I found out that I was waiting at home for my son to come, and I learned that he was shot and killed, unjustly and unfairly, I'd want to burn my city down too.
Yeah,
I believe is what it said.
And I feel like
it was something along the lines of like, if my son went out to the park and didn't return, if my son went out to get Skittles and didn't return, if my son was waiting didn't return, I would burn down the whole damn planet too. Something similar.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and I think we just become too content with our happy little lives, and when something starts disrupting it, whether it's like police riots or whatever, or COVID-19, we want to ignore it. We don't want to think about it. It's like, I just want things to be back the way they are. But because I think a lot of people just don't know how to handle change. They don't know how to handle like knowing that the world is terrible.
Yeah.
A celebrity I really like turns out to be an awful person. I don't want to accept it. I don't want to think about it. The world is going under a pandemic. I can't go outside. I shouldn't be going outside. I don't want to think about it. I just want things to be back the way they were. Like I don't want to worry about it. Why do I have to wear my mask? Rioting is going, around, happening down the streets. People are upset about something, protesting 24/7. I don't want to think about it. I've never seen a police officer do anything like that before in my entire life. What? They must be great people. Come on, stop fighting, guys. Kumbaya. And
on the opposite side of the coin as well, are people who are equally too quick to accept that and too quick to riot and rise up against it.
Like I said, it's just a lack of desire to actually understand, and it comes down to the individual. You have to want to learn. You have to be willing to accept the possibility that you're wrong, first off. And then you have to be willing to accept the new information you're about to receive. And that's not easy for a lot of people to do, because people by nature don't want to accept that they're wrong. It takes a lot of self-discipline and a lot of genuine effort to change your own opinion because you want to. And it goes back to another sign that I saw somebody write. It was a little white woman up in Washington, who had a sign that says, "Sorry it took me so long to get here. I had a lot of catching up to do." And that sign itself shows a lot of humility and a lot of understanding, of where you were and where you are now. Yeah. And I just was blown away at something so simple, because it takes a lot of courage to admit that you're wrong. It takes a lot of courage to say, I was wrong and I'm learning better. I'm trying to do better.
And by the way, I was just thinking about this. I think there's this thing going on with people who they don't see the point in they think it's not going to make a difference. They don't see it. They don't get it. They're like, why can't we just be peaceful? And I get it. I want to be peaceful too. I don't want to have to fight. I don't want to have to like argue with you. Mm-hmm. I don't want to have a discussion about this online. No, of course not. But here's the thing. Human history, if it teaches us anything, is that the best way to get your message across is to be loud and clear. I think
make sure you're heard.
And I think the Black community in America specifically has been dealing with this for such a long ass time. Let's be honest. this is damage that still hasn't fully healed to this day. You're thinking about like slavery back in the day. There were riots.
Yes.
They would fight their oppressors. And that's the thing. You can't, like, we wouldn't be here if people didn't fight. If the slaves didn't riot against, the slave owners. If we didn't, go to the streets and became loud and disrupted the peace, nobody would hear us.
Of course not.
Like, that's just the truth of the matter, is that if you want to be heard, you have to be loud.
Yeah, and like you said, people always say, why can't you be peaceful? There's no use for violence. Here's the thing, very simple. We've tried to be peaceful. People have tried to be peaceful for years. The Black community has tried to be peaceful for decades. Martin Luther King, being the prime example everyone likes to go to about peaceful, resolution and stuff. And I get it. I personally am a man who would choose peace over violence any day if given the choice. Here's the thing: we're at a point where we're not given a choice anymore. It continues to happen, and we're sick of it. We're tired of hearing these problems. I know I, as a white man, have never experienced this, but I don't think I need to experience it to realize what's wrong. It's in front of my face. I know it's wrong, and I feel like I have an obligation to do some part, to help stop it. I just don't like seeing injustice when it's clear as day. Yeah. Never have, and that's why I go out and protest. A quick story, before we move on to some of the, statues that we've been seeing, stripped down and everything. A little story that happened to me the other day. Okay. I have a very good friend of mine. I've known him, since high school, almost 10 plus years at this point. For the sake of conversation, I'm going to just call him Marcus. So Marcus had called me, because he had to go to another city not too far from here, about 20 minutes away, to go pay a ticket. Now, this city is notorious for its cops being extra strict. Everyone knows this, and he had to go there to pay a ticket, and on his way out, a police officer noticed, I guess, that he was trying to leave. Now, keep in mind, this was the first day that court was allowed again since quarantine, so it was really busy. I understand that. So I told him, expect that there would be cops, there will be everywhere. Everyone, this is everyone's court date. But the cop had specifically seemed to follow him. Now, his lawyer had been in between him and the cop. But as they got out of the, courthouse, parking lot, he noticed that the cop was still trailing right behind him for most of the way. And so he pulled into HEB, Texas, one of Texas's local supermarkets. Yeah. Very, very popular, very proud here in Texas. And he had to pull in there. And he called me and said, "Hey, Aaron, I need your help. There's a cop that's been following me that I guess is waiting to pull me over for whatever reason." And he was telling me, as he was on the phone with me, he was telling me that the cop was circling on the outside of the parking lot, because the cop's just not going to, straight up, stop him while he's parked, not doing anything. Mm-hmm. So he called me and he said, "I just paid for an Uber. I'm going to need you to come here, 20, 30 minutes away and drive me back." And that's what I did without question. I got in the Uber. I went, 20, 30 minutes away towards him. He gave me the keys and I drove him back so that he could get home safely. So he doesn't have to worry about paying another ticket, for whatever reason, or getting pulled over or harassed. And
that's disgusting.
And, that's where it's like, I know I had never dealt with that, but that's what I have dealt with, and that alone is more than enough. Like, why? I will always happily do that for Marcus, but I will never understand why I have to do it in the first place. It doesn't make sense.
You shouldn't. You shouldn't have to.
Exactly.
That's absolute bullshit. Pardon my language.
And just to make him feel safe to get home. He lives right around the corner from me. I chill with him almost every other day. The man is one of the most ambitious and hardworking people I know. He wants to make a name for himself, to make his own company, to be his own man. And that is something to respect. And I cannot fathom what's been going on lately. I really can't. So when people, in my family and in my personal life tell me, why are you part of this? You don't understand. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Okay, you don't get it. I don't need to get the whole picture to be able to know what's wrong.
Yeah.
I can. It's like porn. You know it when you see it. You know.
Yeah.
So I can't sit by. I'll tell people openly, I don't know what the right answer is. I don't, and I won't claim that I do. I'll have my opinions, and that's it. But what I do know for a fact is I know what not to do. I know what the wrong answers are. The wrong answers are sitting by, letting this happen, and not speaking up, not saying anything about it. This is a movement that needs everyone's support. This is a movement that needs everyone to understand, because that's the only way change is going to happen, is if everyone wants to change.
Exactly.
We
do need a change, and I don't think. I just find the irony in the fact that Americans, well, a lot of the people who are against the protesting, and going on the streets, fighting for your freedom, don't seem to like get the irony in the fact that we've been doing that for like the whole time. The whole time we've been doing this, we sent troops to other countries to prove a point or something.
We use the guise of liberating them from political oppression or something.
We've been doing this forever, right? Liberating people or whatever. And like whenever Americans try to do it in their own homeland, it's a problem.
Yeah, it's a defamation of our culture. What?
It's like this is the
why would we want to pride oppression? Why would we want to pride hatred?
This is the most American thing we could possibly do. Like Americans fighting for their own freedom.
We call ourselves the land of opportunity, and yet it's very clearly the land of oppression.
Exactly.
If you're not white, fuck you is basically what it is at this point. And I hate it. I hate it so much. Because for me, I'm a utilitarian. I want what's best for everyone. And if, one method says that we need to segregate or discriminate or just impoverish one, group of people, then obviously we're not doing the best for everyone. So this is a movement that for me is not only justified, but necessary and important. Because if we're going to help everyone needs to be equal first off. Everyone needs to be treated the same, seen the same, and held responsible for whatever the same,
And we got to be fully honest. The president's only like feeding the fuel, and it's been happening since day one. Basically calling all Mexicans rapists and criminals, and they're coming over here to ruin our country. They're taking our gerbs.
Yeah, all the stupid rhetoric we've heard for years.
Yeah, and it's so funny because it's like I love the fact, and I love the fact that whenever he talks about MAGA stands for Black people, MAGA loves Black people. It's like, okay, well, obviously MAGA isn't Black people,
right?
Because you're treating them like separate things. You're trying to convince people that like Latinos and Black people and gay people love you, but your actions tell us otherwise. Your actions tell us that that's not true. And oh my God, I'm just thinking about that photo of him with the flag that says "Gays for Trump."
Yeah, it's.
We're not for Trump. Don't worry. Most of us LGBT people are like, no, thank you. We don't need you in our life.
Without a doubt, I'm just sorry. As an individual, I just look at everything he does, and I'm like, obviously, we've never had a president be so ambitious, but I've never seen a president be so foolishly ambitious. It blows my mind how much he's just willing to disregard, and he's not a leader. That needs to be understood. He is not a leader. He is a businessman. And when you mix business and politics, this is what you get. And I'm going to be honest, when Trump was first running for presidency, I was one of those people that said, you know what? He's not a businessman. Maybe this is the change we need. And I have eaten my words time and time again. I realized how wrong that was. I realized how stupid it was at the time. And I've learned, this is the worst decision we could have made, and we are sitting here suffering it. And there are people still chanting that this is a good thing. And it blows my mind.
And I think it's so funny, though, because like, by the way, I don't want to diss you or anything, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about the flags that rose up whenever he started running. you think about the fact that he failed to like create a university. He burned multiple casinos to the ground. A casino, you know, it's supposed to like scam people for money, and he still managed to fuck that up.
Right?
Yeah.
I find that very amusing, honestly.
Yeah, and it's so funny, and I feel like there's all these red flags. I mean, the guy was constantly seen next to, you know, Epstein. I'm like, okay, this dude's sketchy as fuck. And then there are people who like have come around.
Yeah.
They see him for what he is now. At the same time, I kind of think about it. I'm like, okay, but the red flags were there from the get go. You know, the dude is obviously racist. The guy is, you know, he's a piece of shit. He's creepy as fuck. Like he talks about like women, like he talks about a fucking car.
Oh, he's disgusting.
Disgusting. Yeah. Like he's absolutely gross. And people like, oh man, he's such a great guy. He's you know, he's doing what's best for America. And I'm like, I cannot see that at all. And with all the shit,
he did the whole anti-trans thing, and I was so upset. I have a trans brother. I have trans friends, and to see any sort of attempt to take away their rights just pisses me off to no end.
Oh, absolutely. It's really disgusting, and we live in a country that, like, I really do feel like trans people are like one of the most discriminated, like, just group of people in this country at the moment. People, they refuse to even sympathize with the concept of a trans person. They will refuse to think of you as a person. This is what I'm saying. Like, all lives don't matter. They really don't. Not to like if you want to really say that, then you would be standing for trans rights. You would be standing for gay rights. You'd be standing for, you know, literally everyone. But you're not. That's not what this is about.
Yeah, and you know, with everything that Trump does lately too, just, you know, blowing our minds. You know, recently he was talking about, you know, about people who want to rename, you know, certain, you know, long-standing, you know, forts that we have, American forts, you know, like Fort Hood being one of them that are named after Confederate generals, and, you know, tearing down the statues and everything. And he wanted to preserve like at least 10 of them, I think he said, to start. And I'm just like you have a civil rights issue that the likes of America has never seen before. And you have the growing majority of your country telling you that we do not want this. We as the populace do not agree with this. We want change, bring about change, or we will do it ourselves. And he is telling us, for the good of the nation, we are going to preserve these things for historical value and not do anything to promote, you know, growth as a society. And I'm just blown away. So I have an article pulled up by Vox, and I'm going to read a little bit, you know, that's kind of like the center of all this. But I've got a couple of other videos also talking about, you know, tearing down statues and some more information about what's been going on. You know, there's a very famous picture going around right now about people gathering around the Robert E. Lee statue in Richmond, Virginia. It happened on June 4th. You know, people have been going, you know, to all these, you know, their local monuments or their city councils and, you know, pushing to get these things removed. With the Robert E. Lee one specifically, you know, the protesters toppled a statue, you know, of a Confederate general in Richmond, Virginia, Saturday night. It was the latest in a number of monuments to the former slave-owning South to be pulled down by both protesters and public officials as people nationwide demand racial justice and an end to police brutality. And you know, it just goes on, you know, about more specific information, but that's just the gist of what's kind of been going on the past week, you know. And there's all kinds, like, what was it? So far, I read something like 112 statues have been taken down, you know, overall in the country in like the past few years. But most of the push to get rid of those has happened in like the past couple of weeks, you know, and it just blows my mind. You know, places like Montgomery, Alabama, Nashville, Tennessee, you know, and all these other places, you know, Texas has, you know, a few of them, you know, big statues that are being pulled down are like the Christopher Columbus statues here in America. I've even seen claims about Christopher Columbus statues in England and Europe as a whole being taken down.
Yeah.
And other notable figures that had to deal with the slave trade to some degree, you know, just all these racist statues being pulled down. And then you hear arguments about it's a spiritual genocide, you know, against white culture in the South. And I'm just like,
oh my God.
Yeah. And I'm going to play a video here in just a second about a former about a veteran and his thoughts on some racist statues. And this clip was actually from 2007. This is again from Now This News, and it's called Congressional Candidate John Hicks on Confederate Statues. So let's go ahead and play this. It says, watch this Marine make a case against Confederate statues.
I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. And when I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, I raised my right hand, I swore an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And so as we statues, we all need to keep in mind that these statues represent the domestic enemies that I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution from. Now, we can paint them in any light we can say that we should make up our minds about what they meant. But in reality, they were traitorous insurrectionists who sought to subjugate an entire race of people because of the color of their skin. And they felt so strongly that they should be allowed to own another human being that they were willing to throw the Constitution of the United States out the window and join a movement to literally kill their fellow United States citizens to preserve that right. Now, we don't keep statues to those who have made an enemy of the United States. While the Confederates may have been given a pardon, while the Confederates may have been told that their actions would not be held against them, no one made a promise to any Confederate that we would celebrate them in 2017. And we certainly made no promises to put their statues prominently on a historically relevant park where men and women of color were sold and bought like items.
You know, and it says John Hicks is running for Congress in Kentucky to try and flip vulnerable GOP held seats. It's currently held by Representative Andy Barr, who won a narrow victory in 2018. Hicks made the speech during a 2017 city council meeting in Lexington, Kentucky. Officials were debating two Confederate statues near Lexington's courthouse. In the anti-racism protests following the death of George Floyd, racist monuments and statues are being torn down across the country. A statue of Jefferson Davis, the Confederate president, was torn down in Richmond, Virginia on June 10th. So that was 5 days ago. Statues of Christopher Columbus have been vandalized in Boston, Miami, St. Paul, and Richmond. An old slave auction block was removed in Fredericksburg, Virginia. President Trump has come under pressure in recent days. Oh, yeah, he has. To rebrand a number of U.S. military bases named after Confederate leaders. So a lot of stuff that we've been saying already. A lot of stuff I was already talking. You know, obviously,
members, as you consider what to do with these statues, I want you to carefully consider where the proper place for things that celebrate those who rose up against the United States government so that they could maintain the power to own their fellow man.
And you know, that was the end of that video. But I mean, yeah, and so he was right. You know, at the end of the day, no matter how you look at it, they were traitorous insurrectionists. They were people who opposed the Constitution, which the Union fought to uphold. Yeah. You know, and this was a time of great change too. You know, back then, you know, in 1860, 62 to 65, I think was when the Civil War was.
Yeah.
You know,
can I just say, there's a lot there's a lot of stuff that lasted longer in the Confederacy. I've been seeing this online. So
yeah, it's like Pokemon Go being a very classic example I've seen.
It's had a longer life in the Confederacy, and it's so funny that these people attach themselves. Like, okay, let's be fully honest right here. Okay, I've seen so many debates. Oh, the Republicans were the ones that freed the slaves. The Republicans were, you know, like yada yada yada. You hear it all the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the Democrats were the slave owners, right? Okay. Okay, let's say that's true. You're a Republican, right?
Okay.
Why do you worship the Confederacy? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like the Confederacy, they're the losers. We don't make statues for losers. And by the way, Germany doesn't have a single statue dedicated to Adolf Hitler.
Right. Or any of the, you know, his SS officers, you know, Goebbels, Goering, what was it? was the Rommel, his, the very famous German Nazi general.
And if people are talking about how tearing down a statue is like getting rid of history, those statues are not history. Well, if you want history, read a book.
Well, exactly.
Go to a museum.
Yeah,
go to a museum, read a book. You have access to information online at a click of your finger. If you're curious, ask a question. YouTube and Google will more than likely be able to answer, you know, and probably answer more questions than you would even think to ask,
Yeah, that statue is only about pride. It doesn't stand for history.
It's about pride and hate, you know. It's about a sense of superiority that isn't earned,
Exactly.
And
actually, as well, on the topic of statues, I was on a friend's Discord server. I have one with friends from my city, from my college. We were talking about a statue in my city, in the college I used to go to, and essentially it is a statue of a slave owner from history. And then we were debating whether or not it should be torn down, because it is a racist part of history that it's there. And personally, I couldn't care less if it stayed or went. Personally speaking, it's not an issue to me. It's a horrible statue anyway. We've had people lose their lives climbing on the thing. But I say, if we're going to get rid of the statue, we could have something there. Replace it with people who actually deserve to be remembered.
Exactly. I think there's a lot of people in history who've made a much bigger difference than some Confederate general from who knows when.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, just get a fucking statue of George Lucas, or like there's so many people who like have made a bigger difference in culture. And by the way, I remember at the very beginning I was talking about a statue that I was like, I don't know if that one deserves to be taken down. And I remember who it was now. It was actually a Scottish king from like the 13,000s, right? And I was actually discussing this with some friend of mine, and I think I actually kind of agree with them. I think it might have just been a bunch of kids who wanted to tear down something, so they yeah.
I mean, if it's just for destruction's sake, again, it's not something I support. If there is a true legitimate cause behind it, I would understand.
Yeah.
But like you said, if there's just a bunch of kids just wanting to cause problems, get out of here. You're not helping. You're hurting.
Yeah, which is what it looked like. It looked like it was a job done by one person.
Okay. Well, we've got a few more things to cover real quick, but we do not have a lot of time. So, real quick, I want to discuss one more, thing. Like I said, it is Pride Month, and there was a very big, incident that happened, today about that I wanted to cover real quick before we run out of time. A few days ago, there was an attempt, to allow legal discrimination against, the LGBTQ community here in America, as far as the workforce is considered, but in a, pretty surprisingly quick reaction by the Supreme Court, I'm going to go ahead and play a video from CNN's websites, on the Justice Neil Gorsuch. I can't remember his name. I can't pronounce it. Which was, real quick, it says he was the President Donald Trump's first nominee to the Supreme Court. Here he is delivering an opinion Monday that will change how more than 7 million LGBTQ individuals will live and work in the United States. So it's a short video, so let's go ahead and play this real quick. If it will play. Oh, please play. Oh, nope, I don't need an advertisement. We don't need an advertisement. But yeah, so, long story short, let me see if there's any more information in here that I did not see previously. Here we go.
Supreme Court opens up in a rare and revealing interview. For the first time, really, we're hearing from Justice Neil Gorsuch. He sat down with CNN's Ariane DeVoe, who joins us now live from Washington. And Gorsuch really opened up to you about what he sees his role in on the court.
Right? Heading into this new term, President Trump's first nominee on the bench. And he sat down to discuss this book. And John, the timing is interesting here, because of course, the court is about to start this blockbuster term. They're going to hear immigration cases, Second Amendment, LGBT rights, maybe even healthcare and abortion. And I asked him about the fact, I said, look, many people are thrilled that you're on the bench, but there are a lot of people who are concerned. They're seeing now a solid 5-member conservative majority, and they're worried about the direction of the court. And John, he chafed a little bit at my characterization. Take a listen.
I think all a judge can do is fulfill his or her oath as best they can, putting all the other stuff aside, right? Politics, your personal points of view, you leave that over there. When you put on the robe, you put that stuff aside and you open your mind and you listen. And that's all a judge can ever promise. Can't promise outcomes, can only promise their best efforts in the process.
So to the people who say, this court is going to move, they're going to overturn precedent, and now they're 5 solid members, we could see a hard right turn.
I just don't view judges that way. I reject that idea of how judges operate. As we talked about earlier, about 40% of our cases are decided unanimously. We talked about the 5-4 cases, make up a quarter of our docket, maybe a third. Those numbers have been consistent since the Second World War. The only thing that's new is that nothing is new.
Some people do think things have changed. When you say nothing has changed, now there are solid 5 conservative members on the court. Something has changed.
Yeah, again, to my mind, it hasn't. The wonder of the rule of law in this country is its consistency over time. And as troublesome as sometimes our times may seem, and as difficult as they may appear to us, this country has been through a lot of challenges and always risen resiliently, whether it's the civil rights movement, surviving through our Civil War, or today's challenges. Whatever they may be, I've got great confidence in America. And I say to those who don't, look elsewhere. Where else would you rather be?
Right, John, you see, he's a solid conservative. He allowed the travel ban to go into effect. He would have allowed a citizenship question on the census. In some ways, he's carrying on the torch of Justice Antonin Scalia. He looks to the original meaning of the Constitution. He doesn't believe that judges should invent new rights. And of course, that's where he comes under criticism, because many people, his critics, say that that's an outdated way to look at the Constitution. A lot has changed since 1787. There was slavery there. Women didn't have the right to vote. And they say that, look, his view writes certain individuals out of the Constitution. But he comes back strong and he says he rejects that. He says, if you want to change the Constitution, then you've got to amend it. So it was really interesting on his philosophy, John, on the eve of this huge term that's coming up.
It's so interesting to hear ever from a Supreme Court justice. What a revealing interview. Orion, great to have you on.
So to keep in mind, that just gives you a little bit of insight about, some of the people that we have, being responsible for carrying out our laws and stuff like that. And really, in deciding how we go through. So yeah, as you heard, very, very conservative mindset, but, his vote still counted towards, protecting the, workers' rights and, protecting against discrimination. So to come from that background and to still fight for, progress to some extent, seems almost out of character. Well, one thing to note about the Republican Party that I don't think people realize is that it's not just being against change. You can be a Republican and be for change. It's just being slow to it. It's being cautious to it, which is, I think, where he was trying to say he was coming from. I didn't really get that impression, but I think with the end result, I think that's what he was ultimately trying to go for. But either way, I'm glad that the Supreme Court upheld, the defense for workers' rights, of the LGBT community, because we don't need to add, another problem to what's going on right now. We don't need to add more, we don't need to build a separate fire,
Exactly. And that's the thing. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's something we've been seeing with the Trump administration this whole time, is that they're trying to burn down anything good that might have come out of Obama's administration. And we're talking about things that went towards LGBT rights, or things that went towards immigration rights. And he's tearing down these ideas that maybe, like, people are starting thinking about, progress. We're making progress. I was thinking about it too. We're making progress in the immigration side of things. We were making progress. And Trump comes into the picture, And it's like he doesn't even worry about it. That's not even in his mind. He's just, ooh, let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of everything. You know, put all the money like in the armed forces. Like he's been underfunding schools and hospitals, and it for me it doesn't make any sense. Why would you do this? You're getting rid of all this progress that we've been making as a society. You know, we were almost to the point. You know, it feels like we were almost to the point where we were reaching truly like rights for trans people, rights for gay people, and rights for immigrants. But that's not something that the Trump administration even wants to touch. If anything, they want to get rid of it.
Yeah, it's you know, just a blatant act of trying to push something under the rug. But you know, you can only push so much of a mess away before before you can't hide from it. You know, this has been a mess that's been going on long before Trump was even born, long before, you know, anybody now alive was even born. These are issues that are deep seated in American history and culture, and we've pushed it to the side. We've pushed it on the rug for so long. Now we can't not see it. It's unavoidable now. You know. So we can't rely on normal tactics.
As I was going to say, personally, you guys know I am LGBT. I identify as bi, pan, when you want to call it. And I'm lucky insofar as I've not experienced direct and horrible discrimination. I mean, I've gone through the typical questions of, oh, does this mean that you can never be with one person ever kind of thing? But even then, that's just ignorance, not discrimination. And I'm also lucky insofar as being in England, I don't have to worry about the typical things that as much as you Americans have to when it comes to LGBT discrimination. We are slightly more accepting of LGBT in that aspect, so I'm happy with that. And we do have less horrible fighting back for pride parades, that's the word.
Yeah, and you know, before we move on to the last two subjects, before we close off, because we're running a little short on time. You know, it's especially here in America, you know, with the heavy emphasis on, you know, freedoms, you know, air quotes there. You know, there's a culture of, you know, guilt, if you would, that doesn't like change and will hate you for it. And you know, since the 60s, you know, and since long before that too, you know, there's been a massive push for change, a massive push for acceptance, to let people be who they are, you know, to feel free and to, you know, to truly be liberated, you know, to feel comfortable in your own skin, you know, and so when Americans, you know, of old and Americans now, you know, when these ideas come about, when it comes time to talk and, you know, change needs to happen, this is where you get a lot of conflicts, because there are people who don't want to change, and then there are people who want nothing but change, you know. And then it's this rhetoric of what's America about, what does America represent, you know. For me, bottom line is if this is a place where all men should be treated equal, if this is a place of opportunity, we should always allow the opportunities, you know, for people, you know, in whatever allows the best efforts that they can make, you know. So taking rights away, allowing forms of discrimination, you know, or anything of the sort, you know, it is everything that I believe America does not stand for, should not stand for.
Yeah, and
you know,
and I know we're short on time, but I feel like just to kind of cap off things from my side, I sort of feel like there's too much of an emphasis in keeping things the way they are. You're right, we do need change. Change is very important, and that's where I just don't agree with a lot of conservative points of view, because conservative, you know, just in general, being conservative means keeping things the way they are. Keeping things as close.
Conserve, you know, conserve your ways.
Yeah, and that's, look, if we do that, we put it in the society as we can. We need change. We need to move ahead. We need to think ahead, and not just for ourselves, but for the people around us. You know, our fellow man, our fellow woman. You know, like everyone, everybody. This isn't about me. This isn't about Christianity. This isn't about like my point of view.
It's being human.
It's about being human. Exactly. And it's such a. I feel like it's something so important, and we forget about it sometimes. But yes, we do have exceptions. There's a reason we have laws. But we have to also think, like, is this law actually doing any good, or is this law hindering the rights of a person?
Yeah. And you know, with all, you know, these thoughts going on, I can understand why a lot of people, you know, they want to completely detach from America. They don't want to be associated with it anymore. Even so much so that now, as far as I know, there's 3 different autonomous zones that have been set up around America. And the most famous one right now being Capitol Hill in Seattle. So we're going to play a little clip from the New York Post before we go into latest facts about COVID-19 and how that's still affecting us. So let me go ahead and get the video started.
Let's start. Man, how did we get here? How did we get here?
What do we want? What do we want?
It says protesters are set up an autonomous zone in Capitol Hill. This comes after many days of clashes with police and National Guard. The police eventually abandoned their station, their police department. So protesters moved in and created a 3-block village with guarded barricades.
And the police station, from what I understand, the police deoccupied this station. They had been defending it for about a week, a little more than that. But yeah, they have, from what I understand, vacated the station, and people are out in the streets in front of it, continuing to protest.
People want to turn the police station into a community center, which I'm so here for.
Now that they're gone, we're just going to show them this is all we wanted. We just wanted a good time, and that's all it is now.
Here's the thing. In reality, if somebody pulled out a gun and shot somebody else, they call 911 and the cop would come and arrest them. So is it really a completely separate government? No, it's really not. But if the cops are going to withdraw, it's a power vacuum. People are going to say, okay, we'll run things then.
There's no looting. There's no violence here. This is really a peaceful zone. So really these 3 blocks kind of in every direction from where I'm standing, there are barricades. There are people keeping watch and making sure everyone is safe.
My name is Keith Brown. I'm an electrician, but as of right now, I'm a guard because I had to quit my job so that I could do this right now. As of right now, I'm needed at the gate. I'm needed to guard the gate. All of us feel safer if we have an army on all of our weak points.
It's a free zone. People are out here using sidewalk chalk, lighting candles as a memorial. It's really a special place, and there's people want to do good here. Nobody wants to hurt anybody else.
You know, and you know, there's more to that video, but yeah, I remember hearing, you know, first reports about, you know, Chaz, as you'll see it all over Facebook, you know, Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. I've been seeing pictures of them starting their own farms. I've been seeing them, you know, talking and you know, just posting videos of them just having a good time, just chilling out, smoking, you know, creating drum circles, you know, and just, you know, really fighting for people to just, you know, be in a calm environment. When it was first being formed up, they were talking to local businesses who were willing to participate, you know, and expand, and that's why they were able to grow to 3 blocks. And you know, there's discussions about how police departments are being caught, you know, editing pictures by throwing people in, you know, dressed up to the fucking, you know, teeth, you know, just full of armor and guns and look like they're about ready to start riots and stuff like this. And Anonymous is even going out and, you know, proving that a lot of these pictures are edited, you know, that's not what was really going on and stuff, you know, just painted this in a bad light. And of course, when anything like social change is painted in a bad light, you know, Trump's going to respond. Of course. So we got a short little video here about from NBC News. It's called "Trump Threatens Military Action Over Seattle's Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone." So let's go ahead and listen to this clip real quick.
In Seattle's hip Capitol Hill neighborhood, the East Police Precinct has a new name. It's a symbol of the dramatic transformation triggered by more than a week of violent clashes, tear gas, and flashbangs between police and protesters, calling for an end to police brutality in the name of George Floyd.
What do you hope to tell the world here as you protest?
I just want justice, so we just want it now.
In an unexpected move this week, police boarded up and left the East Precinct, hoping protesters would disperse, but they stayed, creating the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, or CHAZ, over several city blocks to gather, paint murals, and plant gardens without a cop in sight. However peaceful, the scene here prompting President Trump to threaten military action again today, calling protesters terrorists.
We're not going to let this happen in Seattle. If we have to go in, we're going to go in. The governor's either going to do it, let the governor do it. He's got great National Guard troops, he can do it. But one way or the other, it's going to get done.
While the zone remains peaceful, the police chief, who was the first Black woman to lead the department, is now concerned their absence from the area is threatening public safety.
Our 911 response times have tripled in the area. They've gone from just over 5 minutes to about 18 minutes for the really important calls that we're responding to.
As the zone grows, police say they plan to return, promising something will change.
When I look at you, I see my own family members right in your face, right? So it is time for us to have dialogue and have change, and I'm all for it.
Jolene Kent, NBC News, Seattle.
So, I mean, yeah, that's Trump's response to people, not wanting to be part of a country that they hate, which is, I mean, I get it from a very objective point of view, but with how he's handled everything else, it adds to his already destroyed image.
Yeah, it really does. He's losing followers by the minute, and yeah, you're right. He's only tearing the country apart. He's only making things worse. He's not gonna heal the country. He's tearing it down. Instead of emptying the swamp, he's making it bigger.
Mm-hmm. And on kind of the back burner of all this, we still have, COVID-19 to deal with, so, and I will always say, like, these protests are worth having. They're justified, and I am forever glad that I can consider myself part of it, as I have joined in, and stuff like that is important. But this is where we kind of, or at least I myself, met this kind of mental gray area, because at the same time, we do have a virus that is killing millions of people, that has infected already over 8 million people worldwide. There's talks about the second wave, about, mass gatherings, Houston being one of the worst when it comes to social distancing. We're seeing one of the highest spikes. 22 states have now seen rises in infection rates. And a lot of it is because of the riots and the protests, because it is a lot of people gathering. But then you run into the question of, we witness a murder on TV, and you expect us to stay at home? You expect us to keep calm? Like, no, it doesn't happen that way. Exactly. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And as much
in some
as
aspects, it did come at the worst time for everybody, because everyone wants to fight back and say this isn't right, but also everybody wants to obviously not cause another wave of the pandemic, because it is, again, a pandemic. So many people have been dying from the coronavirus. So it's a really hard place that everyone's been thrown in.
And now we're dealing with another issue of China. For the longest time, it was, they weren't getting new cases, but now they've got 49 new cases and a possible new strain that came out. I found this short little video that we're going to play here in a sec from Beijing. The video is called "Beijing District in Wartime Mode Amid Spike in COVID-19 Cases," and it's by Sky News. And this is going to tell us a little bit about what's going on and the fear of the second wave that some people were talking about and should be taken more seriously. So let me go ahead and play this real quick.
A worryingly familiar scene. A food market shuttered and under investigation. 11 residential areas in southern Beijing in lockdown. Virus-free for almost 2 months. Now the city is facing a new COVID-19 cluster.
The Fengtai district has immediately launched a wartime-like response. We've set up a field headquarters to help seal off the Xinfandi wholesale market and the surrounding communities.
One of the biggest markets in Beijing. The first new case was linked to Xinfadi wholesale site on Thursday. 45 other workers and visitors have now tested positive. None had symptoms. Several other markets have also been closed as mass testing takes place. The pandemic was almost over, and then suddenly there's new hotspots. I'm a little scared.
When I saw the news, I really panicked, but I thought it over and it's not a big deal. They'll seal off the area, so there shouldn't be a large-scale outbreak.
After the initial COVID-19 outbreak was linked to a market in Wuhan, China banned the trade, capture and consumption of wildlife. This week, state media reported traces of the virus were found on a salmon chopping board in the market. Now authorities in Beijing will carry out a complete safety screening of the whole food industry in an effort to prevent a second wave of infection.
This particular market is a very large one, and so there's a lot of people there. Just one case going into the market, which is semi-enclosed. You can imagine there could be transmission onwards, but I don't think the 50 cases identified are the only infected people in Beijing. I think there'll be people with infection in other parts of the city, and that will become clearer as testing expands and more is done.
Local officials now say they're in emergency mode. Tourism in the capital has been temporarily banned. Plans for some primary children to restart school suspended.
So that of information what's going on now in China, and you know what they didn't say in the video was they were how some of the fish that they were capturing and stuff was coming from European countries, which kind of makes sense about a strain of this virus evolving in a separate part of the world. You know, with how interconnected all of our travel and commerce from around the country. I can expect to see it again. I'm just kind of surprised it happened in China again. But I can see this, spreading over the world again if we don't take actions, to get a hold of it now, now that we do know what it's like through the first wave, but only time will tell with what we see, happen to, this virus and how we respond to it, with the civil rights, issues going on now, there's a lot of questions of what we do, what should we do for our rights and what should we do for our health? And like I said in the beginning, I don't know what the right answers are. I just know what the wrong ones are.
Yeah. I will say it's good to see that even a lot of protesters are still wearing masks. And I know it's going to happen.
Yep.
Contagious is going to happen. But there is an aspect of this where you gotta see what goes first. You gotta see what's more important at the moment. And yeah, this virus is very, very dangerous. But I do believe we have to prioritize what's most important right now. And that's our rights. Because COVID or not, we could lose our rights.
Mm-hmm.
We could lose, this battle.
It sucks to say, and it's not an easy thing to agree on, because yes, people's lives do matter. They always matter, in my opinion. But either way, people are dying. Black people are dying by cops. Ignorant people are dying, by the virus. And the Black demographic is one of those demographics that are still hurt the worst, by this virus. Due to systematic oppression issues, that have been in place for years. But we could keep going on and on and on about everything that's going on in our opinions. And I just kind of wanted to glance into what's been going on. But this was definitely kind of a more freeform episode, a little impromptu. But I just felt it was important, to get it out there, get our thoughts out there, and really, really talk about what's been happening, because we are still only on the cusp of change. There's still so much that needs to happen, and we won't know how that'll play out until the future,
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, all the audio that you heard today were from videos that are owned by their respective companies and news sources. But I just felt it was important to play so that way we understand, from different sources what all has been going on lately.
I agree.
So, but yeah, I fully expect this episode not to do as well as some of our other ones, because a lot of people have been tuning out. They don't want to hear what's been going on, because people want to distract themselves. They don't want to face issues, and I get that, but I still feel like this was important. This was important to talk about and important to be aware of.
Mm.
It only happens when everyone stands together.
Yeah, I really wouldn't mind doing one of these discussion topics again.
We'll probably do one in a few months just to see, how things have changed, since then. But so much.
Hopefully, in a few months, we will not have a worldwide lockdown. That would be nice.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
But we will do what we need to, because we are battling two massive issues right now. Civil rights and a pandemic, a viral pandemic. So both of these require two completely different responses, and to deal with both of them at the same time, I think is really going to show what we as a species are capable of, let alone what we as Americans are capable of.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who managed to stick it this far out, thank you. Seriously, thank you. It means a lot to me and everyone here. We hope that this, to some degree, at least inspired, discussion for you to be interested in, current events and everything that's going on, and for you to educate yourself on what's been going on, not just take, the news, and journalists at their word, because unfortunately, they don't always push the news. They also got to push bias, and it's not right, but it's what it is, But yeah, like I said, this was definitely a different episode. I'm glad we did it. But we are going to go back into more of a traditional episode starting next week again.
Yep.
Hopefully, if everything works out right, we will have our first collaboration finally set up. I think we got the last of the details that we needed to work out figured out. So I cannot wait for that.
All right.
So, but anyways, anything else you guys needed to say?
No, I'm pretty good.
I think I said my piece, definitely.
All right. Well, we hope you all have a wonderful day, and we cannot wait to see you guys next week. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Bye.